Oh, we are live. Yeah. Hi.
It finally worked.
Welcome to a live episode at Christian channel on Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. Sorry, we had a problem. We had some technical difficulties starting. StreamYard kept saying we got an error, so I apologize. I didn't run the intro video. There was some kind of problem. Anyway, we're all here. Welcome. This is a show we do every 2 weeks. We are a panel of Christians. We bring on special guests. We do movie reviews. We read books together, and then sometimes we talk about current events and things that are involving faith or culture or politics, and try to bring a Christian perspective. And everyone's welcome in the chat, as always, both believers, non-believers. We are blessed to have a very special guest tonight. This is a man that I know for a few years now, haven't seen him in a while, Mr. Adam Coleman. You can find him at wrong_speak on X or Instagram. He's the founder of Wrong Speak Publishing and the Breaking Bread YouTube series. He's also the author of the book From Black Victim to Black Victor, and he writes in a number of places. So everybody, welcome. Give a big round of applause for Adam Coleman in the chat.
In the chat.
Hello, Adam. Claps in the chat. Hello, Adam.
Thank you for having me on. I know you asked me today. I was like, of course, because I'm at heart I'm still a Keri Smith fangirl. So.
Oh, you. Oh,
aren't we all?
I shouldn't assume your gender then. Fangirling. We're also joined by Michelle from Force of Light, as always. Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. We had a good weekend. We missed you, Keri, up in Knoxville, but we had a good weekend.
I heard it was good. I was so sad I didn't get to go.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And then we're also joined by Mr. Brahma Bull in the red hat tonight.
Yeah, 2 days in a row. I'm getting really comfortable over here. So,
is the hat new? Because I'm thinking of getting one now.
No, this one is way back from the original run. So,
wow.
The new ones have much bigger lettering and 45, 47 on them, that kind of thing.
Oh, well.
So this is the OG hat.
The OG hat. I've never been one of the red hat wearers, but lately with the convictions and then with this, everything that happened this weekend, I think I might just get a hat. I might have to do that. So I'll get the new one. Well, speaking of the red hat, the Republican National Convention is currently happening. There's a lot of controversy online. And if you're not perpetually online like some of us are, you may not be aware of this, but there seems to be a cultural divide or a split happening currently between people who are saying that some of the speakers that have been booked do not fit the values and morals of the Republican Party, or more specifically, they're saying these people are saying things that are not Christian. And then between those people and then the people who are saying it doesn't really matter, this isn't church, this is a political convention and it's a big tent and you should allow different voices on the stage. And so there's these two kinds of sides that are arguing it out on Twitter. And I thought we might start with one of the controversial speakers, just so everyone, before we start talking about it, so that everyone in the chat knows in case they haven't seen it and they're aware of the speakers that we're talking about. This is the first one. This is Amber Rose. The controversy involving her is that she has an OnlyFans. She does online porn. She's currently running a 50% off special while she's at the RNC. She is a recent walkaway. Some of us here are walkaways. She left the Democratic Party and she is best known. I think she's been in music videos and then she's dated people like Kanye West in the past. She has a huge following. It's in the millions and millions and millions on all the platforms that the young people use. And this was her video address at the RNC.
My name is Amber Rose. I'm a model and entrepreneur. Thank you. But most importantly, I'm a mother. My whole world revolves around providing for my children. keeping them safe, and giving them an opportunity for a better life. That's something that unites all American parents, whether we're Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, or liberals. We all want a better country for our children. But I'm here tonight to tell you, no matter your political background, that the best chance we have to give our babies a better life is to elect Donald Trump President of the United States. Now, you may be wondering why I'm up here telling you this. I'm no politician and I don't want to be, but I do care about the truth. And the truth is that the media has lied to us about Donald Trump. I know this because for a long time I believed those lies, so I'm here to set the record straight. The first person I knew who supported Donald Trump was my father. I was shocked. My entire family is racially diverse, and I believed the left-wing propaganda that Donald Trump was a racist. My father said, "No, he's not, Amber. What are you talking about?" And when I insisted, he said, "Prove it." So to prove my father wrong, I did my research and looked into all things Donald Trump. People have to do their research. I watched all the rallies, and I started meeting so many of you, his red hat wearing supporters. I realized Donald Trump and his supporters don't care if you're Black, white, gay, or straight. It's all love. And that's when it hit me. These are my people. This is where I belong. So I let go of my fear of judgment, of being misunderstood, of getting attacked by the left, and I put the red hat on too. Thank you. Love you too. I never felt more free and more love for my country than I do now. I want to thank my father, who's in the audience tonight, for opening my eyes. He served over 20 years in the U.S. military. Thank you for your service, Dad. Yeah. I love you, Dad. I love you. I love you so much. Thank you. When I met the president and Melania for the first time, he was kind and generous and funny as hell. Very funny. The First Lady was gracious and smart with a smile that will brighten up any room. If you're watching this tonight, you know our country is in trouble. Just like me. When you go to the store and buy food for your family, you're shocked. When you fill up your gas tank, you're pissed. I know I am. And when you turn on the news, you are just exhausted. Inflation is out of control. And you know in your heart it was not like this under Donald Trump. My message to you tonight comes from a humble place. The left told me to hate Trump, and even worse, to hate the other side, the people who support him. When you cut through the lies, you realize the truth. American families were better when Donald Trump was president. We were safer, wealthier, and stronger. A vote for Donald Trump is a vote to put money back in our pockets and good food on our kids' plates. Yes. Or, as Trump would say, it's a vote to make America great again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. So that is the speech. And I wanted to start with it because I thought I had one opinion reading some of the commentary, which we can get to in a second. But then when I watched the speech, it sort of changed my mind and I have a different opinion. So why don't we start there? What do you guys think about this?
I'll let Adam go. He's the guest.
Well, where do I start? Actually, this was the first time I was listening to it, so I'm actually glad you played it. But my opinion wasn't changed, but I'm just glad to have more context as far as her speech. I think it was a pretty straightforward speech, just giving her brief walkaway story essentially, and I see nothing wrong with it. She's not saying, no, subscribe to my OnlyFans or I like his policies on porn. She's not doing anything like that. She's not advocating for anything really other than vote for Trump. That's all she's doing. So I don't know how much you want me to get into it, but I just see no problem with what she said. I also don't have a problem with her being up there to say anything. Her story is valid, just like anybody else's story is valid. And sometimes the message comes from imperfect messengers. So I'll go there and everybody can go next.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I didn't really know Amber Rose. I didn't know she had an OnlyFans or any of that. I thought the speech was it was basically clear. It was clear to me last night that was it last night or was Amber Rose?
That was the first night.
The first night, okay. And it was very clear to me with the pick even of JD Vance that a theme of the night was going to be, I used to not like Donald Trump, but he won me over through his policies. So I actually thought it was a very good, I thought that was a very good theme because I think there's so many Americans that actually plays very well to because that is their personal story as well. So I thought Amber Rose, like Adam said, I thought it was a very straightforward, to the point speech that I thought it was good.
I think it was the best speech that has been given at the RNC so far this week. And I can see both sides of it. I can see people saying that why are we platforming somebody with this moral compass when that's not kind of where we're trying to take the moral compass. But it's a national convention. Your job at the national convention is to gather in as many constituents as you can from different groups to come together. So, yeah, you're going to have people you disagree with. I mean, Michelle just said it with Vance. That's a never Trumper that completely reversed.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard a whole bunch of people call him out on stuff too. And the whole thing is, I mean, even people in our area have said it, and it's like, well, if Keri Smith can exist, then you have to believe that JD Vance can change his mind on Trump or anything as well. I mean, you still got to make sure that he's, doing what we're wanting him to do. But people can change their minds, and people can do the research, like she said, and go find the truth out there. Because if all you're doing is watching the mainstream media, yeah, that's what you believe about Trump. But the information is out there. So I have no problem with it. And like I said, I thought it was the best speech that's been given so far.
I mean, and he's just one example I can think of, but I mean, even look at, say, a Clay Travis. He had worked on he worked on Al Gore's campaign. I think he definitely voted for Obama both times. Couldn't bring himself to vote for Hillary, but voted for Johnson. And these years later, he now sits in the same time slot as Rush Limbaugh. Like, people's opinions change. They don't have to be stagnant their whole life. So yeah, I agree with what everyone has said.
Well, let's talk about some of the loudest voices who are critical of this. The first one that comes to mind is Matt Walsh.
Yeah.
And since we're kind of all seem to be in agreement, I'm going to add some of his points here, and then we can see if we disagree or agree with these. I read his stuff before I watched the speech, and at first I was generally in agreement with him. And I'm very glad I watched the speech. Actually, I just saw someone in the chat said, it was scrolling by, but they said, oh yeah, Daniel, I don't know, but now I kind of think the controversy is a bit overblown. Yeah, if it's important to go to the source material and see what everybody's talking about. So Matt Walsh says, some thoughts on this Amber Rose thing, since it's apparently extremely controversial to say that the Republicans should not give a primetime convention speaking slot to one of the founders of the Slut Walk. Oh, she was a Slut Walk founder.
Yep.
First of all, maybe Rose has totally changed and had some kind of conversion experience. There's no evidence of that, he says. Only that she likes Donald Trump now. There are many, many, many examples of conservatives rallying around their new celebrity hero just because the person likes Trump, only to be humiliated and betrayed by that same person shortly after. This has happened countless times. I've called it ahead of time in nearly every case and been screamed at by conservatives the way you're screaming at me now. Hopefully this is the first time I'll be wrong about something like this, but I highly doubt it. Second, even if there has been some kind of conversion, that doesn't mean you take someone who's been a conservative for 42 seconds and turn them into a mouthpiece for your movement. Again, how many times do we need to learn this lesson? A person who's been wrong about everything up until approximately yesterday morning needs to be learning and listening, not giving primetime speeches at a political convention. Third, just to give you an idea of how new Rose's conversion is, if there has been one at all, it was just this past March that she praised the Satanic Temple for helping a lot of people by making sure they can get abortions. That was in March of this year. She has not even pretended to disavow that point of view or any of her far left views apart from her dislike of Trump. If it is outrageous and offensive to suggest that a person such as this is perhaps not fit to be a primetime Republican speaker, then conservatism as a movement is in even worse shape than I thought. In conclusion, come on, guys, what the hell? And he had a lot more to say, but that was it.
Can I just point out, he keeps using the word conversion, like she's converting to Christianity.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah.
And she didn't say I think it's a little murky there with using that word, because she's saying she converted on her opinions on Trump. Yes. She hasn't said she's changed her entire worldview. And after I watched the speech, I was left thinking, to his point about you shouldn't make them a Republican mouthpiece on a national stage. I don't think you should make them, someone going out there speaking on behalf of policy, but there are so many speakers at the convention, and to have one who is representative of people who've woken up or walked away on Trump, I think is a good idea, because that represents a lot of us. I used to be on the left. I used to hate Trump. Adam Coleman, you left the Democratic Party as well. So even though, you don't have an OnlyFans that I know of, but that was a bad joke.
Wow.
But
70% off this week only.
That's right.
But I think we can see parts of ourselves in her, in that what she's talking about is saying, I did my research and I had an aha moment that I was being lied to.
So can I have like a mini rant?
Yeah.
Because I have so many things I could go to. So my first thing is with Matt Walsh, aka Captain Curmudgeon, who believes that he is the arbiter of truth and I know what's right. And when really, if you were to give this man power, he would rule over everyone, because he believes he knows everything and he does no wrong. When he uses a line, she shouldn't be talking, she should be listening. To whom? He means to him. She needs to listen to him, right? And anyone who agrees with what he believes. And my fundamental problem is that, and obviously we're all Christians, and so I'm speaking from a Christian perspective, at least in my head. My fundamental problem is this wanting to mix faith and politics, wanting to have the Republican Party be Church 2.0. And it's not. It's a political party. And political parties are based on winning or losing. And so when you have people who are of faith, who think that being of faith needs to mix into every environment that they exist in, you don't work at a company that is only of your faith most of the time, unless you just happen to work in a company that's like that. Most people don't care where they get their money from. Most people don't care what political party and every little thing that every person does there. But there's like this weird fanaticism with wanting to have a certain faith-based stance for every single person who chooses R. Mm-hmm. And for me, I'm like, well, a political party is about winning. It doesn't matter. Like I said, I would have more of an understanding if she went up there and said, now let's be pro-choice. Well, that would be a different stance than the typical Republican Party stance. She's not espousing any policy changes. She's not espousing any left-wing beliefs and trying to change the Republican Party. She's simply saying, I changed my mind. Hence, she is humble enough to change her mind, unlike Captain Curmudgeon. She's humble enough to change her mind to consider that the man she used to label as a racist actually isn't, and went far enough to even meet him in person and speak highly about him. This is a difference between someone who has humility and someone who has complete arrogance. And the only difference between someone like, I'm not even going to say that, but ultimately, I think this is a fundamental issue. We have the puritanical authoritarians that exist within the Republican Party who want to close the big tent and make it small again and say everyone must be evangelical Christians and everyone must believe in this, must believe in that. And we're going to talk about the prayer that was given by someone who is not a Christian. Oh, dear God. Like, I think this entire thing, I have a true belief. I know I'm talking for a bit, but I have a true belief that once Donald Trump leaves, this is going back to the Republican Party that I didn't really like that much. Mm-hmm. It's going to go back to the Republican Party that makes evangelicals at the very top of the sphere, and everyone gets these BS puritanical questions when they run for office, and it's not church, mm-hmm. and it doesn't matter. As long as the party, every political party has, here's our policy stances. As long as the stances aren't changing, then who cares? Mm-hmm. Who cares? Who cares if the person is gay and is voting for? Who cares if the person is trans and voting for? Who cares? The person that you don't like is voting for the person that you do like. So be in power. So put in these policies that you're advocating for, right? They're benefiting you. And you're over there looking a gift horse in the mouth and saying, F off. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they have a job that I don't agree with. And they haven't always felt this way in their life. Captain Curmudgeon has always been this way. He came out of the womb being a hardcore Republican, and he carried a Bible with him to the nursery. Like, this is the type of people that we have to deal with. And these are the type of people that just make me think, you guys love losing.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Because if that's kind of been my issue with most of the Daily Wire, there's some of them that are okay, I guess, is that brand of conservatism kind of needs to die in the sense of it can't win. It is too small. It is too narrow of a road, and it cannot win in today's society.
Right.
Well, I think they're aimed at a constituent group that is much older. I mean, that's who watches Daily Wire, that and me. But I mean, I was thinking about it. We just did the show with Mike Harlow yesterday. Mm-hmm. As a Christian, I may not agree with his lifestyle choices, but I'm perfectly able to talk to him, be his friend, and agree with his political decisions all day long. So,
speaking of Mike Harlow, I just want to interject and say, he was featured in one of these videos at the last presidential election, RNC. I don't know if you guys know this. And he recently tweeted, the RNC leaves one slot open for a harlot at every convention. And that's this. I'm happy to pass the torch to Amber Rose.
The other thing I was going to point out, I don't know that most people caught this unless you were watching it live. Mm-hmm. Joy Reid, immediately after that speech was given, you could tell that some of the more lefty media was shaken up, because Joy Reid comes on screen and goes, well, that was interesting from a racially ambiguous person
Wow.
refused to call her black after that because her father is white and her mother is black, but never had a problem with that with Obama or Kamala Harris or any other. So, yeah, you can tell
Wow.
they thought that that was a bomb that got dropped.
Well, I'm
I-
pretty sure Van Jones said something about how he thought that would play to the African American audience. I think was kind of a direct quote that he
Yep.
made.
It's going to play well, I think. And the thing is, she has a lot of people in the chat were saying they had never heard of her. I had barely heard of her before this, but young people have heard of her. She has 25 million
On Instagram.
followers on Instagram. That's a huge number of that's just a huge. She's currently got a picture of Trump as her profile picture. It's like this girl's like in for Trump for this election, and I think I mean, I'm going to echo what a lot of you are saying. I guess I'm not as cynical about the Daily Wire or Matt Walsh. I don't maybe I'm a Pollyanna about this. I don't think he's necessarily playing to an older crowd. I think he probably legitimately thinks that there's something at risk in losing values of the party when you platform someone. Not I think he seems to be saying it's fine for her to be there, but don't put her on a pedestal. And at first I was like, I understood some of the arguments he was making, but once I saw it, I was saying she's not being presented as the face of the party. There's
Right.
many faces of the party on that stage. They have a whole thing about everyday Americans. You know, they're basically showing people from all walks of life, all different races, sexuality, like the different religions, different faiths, who are coming together to say, when we cast our vote for who is going to lead this country, we are in agreement that it should be this guy instead of that guy.
Yep.
And that's it.
Well, and she's at the beginning of the first night of the convention. That sure, it's a prime time slot, but nobody's watching the convention typically until about Thursday, unless you're a hardcore political junkie like I am.
Yeah.
I mean, Thursday's when Trump's going to do his speech. So, I mean, you're not really giving her that big of a spotlight, but you are giving a spotlight. It's not as bad as Walsh is making it out to be, but I also do understand some of his position on it.
Well, I think even though maybe like as far as again like certain demographics may not watch that on until Trump comes, I think
But the clips are going to get out there.
Those clips are going to go viral of Amber Rose. And going back to Captain Curmudgeon, as Adam calls him, it's almost like it's like that old judgmental church lady that the new woman comes into church and that she's genuine, but she's maybe dressed a little, revealing maybe. And they're too harsh and don't kind of come at it in love. It's very gatekeeping. I mean, kind of the way the word that gets used. Because here's my thing. I'm looking at two people on screen in Keri and Adam, who your first step was almost a political step. And then your views kind of kept morphing. And then even you eventually both found faith. And
yes,
I'm not saying that's necessarily I pray that happens for Amber. I don't know if that will happen, but who's to say, just like you, Keri, she doesn't vote for Trump and all of a sudden begin to reevaluate even pro-choice. Who knows?
It's a long path.
Yeah.
Like, she just woke up. If you believe her, which I do, I don't have a reason not to. Yeah. You know, if a reason presents itself, sure. But that's a lot. It reminds me a little bit of, we talked about it before, the OnlyFans girl who found Christ, the one with the red hair.
Nala.
Yes, Nala.
Yes, Nala. Everyone was trashing, and they were like, well, why hasn't she done this, this, and this yet? And it's like, do you know, have you been on that path? It's not a sort of a overnight thing. First of all, to leave a cult. I was in a cult religion, woke. I don't know if everyone who leaves that the left would call it, that they were in a cult would call it that. But what I was in was a cult. And then that's a long path. And then finding my way to God was a long path. And then even when I found God, shedding parts of the Adam nature of myself, that's a long path to figuring that stuff out. So it's yeah, it seems like they're sort of like, well, she woke up on Trump, now she should be in line with us on everything else, but maybe she hasn't changed her views on abortion yet. She's still voting Trump. And as you pointed out, Adam, she didn't use the platform to say the party should change its views on abortion, to match me. She didn't say any of that. So
the whole point of her speech, again, let's go back to JD Vance and the comments he made in 2015 and how he's changed. The whole point of her speech was summarized in, I believe the lies of the media, and how she would come to figure out they were lies that she was being told.
yeah.
So I thought it was impactful.
Which is highly effective after last weekend and watching all of the headlines that they were putting out about last weekend. You're seeing the lies in real time. It becomes more effective to have a speech like that.
Well, last weekend, and then also everyone's eyes should be open to the fact that we've been told Joe Biden was sharp as a tack.
A couple of comments from the chat. Do you guys mind if I read some of these?
Sure.
Andrew Joyner says, I think it might be relevant to mention that Trump is not particularly conservative, at least socially. That's another great point.
Yeah. He's in New
Is that where you're
York.
gonna go ahead, Adam? Take it away, Adam.
Oh my God. I mean, this is selective conservatism, right? When I'm looking at Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is in many ways a New York liberal, right?
Yep.
But he's just an old school New York liberal, right? He's just not a warmongering liberal, right? And so they have this guy, like one of the funniest things I think, anytime there's a Republican that they don't like, they call a rhino. Yet literally, Donald Trump has been a Democrat his entire life. And here he shows up and says, I'm going to run the party. And he takes over the entire party. No one ever calls this man a rhino. No one. He's not conservative. The man's been divorced I don't know how many times. He's had sex scandals. Like, I don't know in which way. He's even asked the religious question. And he gave my favorite answer ever. What's your favorite scripture verse? All of it. It's all good. It's all good.
That's like Sarah Palin. What's your favorite magazine?
It's like the whole thing.
She's like all of it, all the magazines.
It's a great book. Some people say it's the best book. Didn't believe them.
Oh, that's excellent.
It's
well, yeah. I mean, that is what Trump is, but Trump is also effective. I mean, I think that's where most people are following him far more than his actual line by line. What does he believe on this specific thing, that specific thing?
Well,
the thing is, you trust him to get something done.
Well, I think back to this group we're dealing with, I mean, it's pretty well documented. They don't really like Trump because he doesn't really present that very narrow what they are looking for, even though Ben Shapiro himself has had to admit that Trump was vastly more conservative in his policies as a president than he ever dreamed he would be.
Yeah. But you're
right.
He's not conservative. I'm conservative. I swallow it to vote for Trump because I think he's an effective leader. Mm-hmm. But you are exactly right that he would probably be called a rhino if he was actually in the Congress or the Senate.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my issue is, in one circumstance, the person's moral stance, their behavior, their past is relevant. But the man who's seeking to be the most powerful man in the world, his moral stance, his past is no longer relevant. His mean tweets, who cares? All this other stuff. But one woman wants to come up on stage and just give a testimony, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
And she can't. Why is she even here? Meanwhile, the guy he's facing possible time in jail for banging a porn star and paying her off. Allegedly. But
and my take on that has always kind of been, look at David. I mean, David and Bathsheba, that story, he still was made by God to be a good king. He may have had some major slip-ups, having somebody murdered, coveting somebody's wife.
God can use anyone. And I think about that a lot when it comes to someone like Trump, because I did have a friend even recently who got in touch and said she was concerned, for me and how could I support someone like Trump being a Christian and he's a bad person. And I was like, I'm not voting for my I'm not selecting him to be my pastor or my shepherd. And I think he would be a terrible shepherd. He needs a shepherd. But I'm picking of these two options. I know there's more than two, but I'm saying the two that have a chance. I'm picking the best one to lead the country. And I think God can use anyone, even him. And I'll tell you something, if we're going based on morality, I'll take, and you're just apples to oranges morality. The immorality of Trump, I'm not disagreeing with any of it, the personal choices and the grab them by the P word and all that stuff. But on the other side, you've got Biden. It's not even a contest. Biden is deeply immoral and is leading a deeply immoral party that sanctions sterilizing and mutilating kids. Are you kidding me? In terms of the immorality they can inflict on the country, or they've shown in the 4 years that they've each served, the immorality they've been willing to inflict on the country, on other people, Biden is allowing children to be sacrificed to Moloch, essentially. So I'm like, when it comes to morality, I don't even think that's a comparison. I'm sorry, I'm getting off subject. But the point being, yes, he's an imperfect man. So to say someone up there saying, hey, I changed my mind about him, oh, she's imperfect. It's like, yeah,
it's hypocritical.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I won't even use like a David because he's too righteous to compare to Trump. But I could use like a Nebuchadnezzar, who was, way more evil than Trump ever thought about being. And yet he has very much what seems to be a heart change. And he's very good to God's people and to Daniel in the book of Daniel. And in the book of Daniel, it does say in Daniel 2:21, let me find it, that, and he, speaking of God, and he changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. I just, God can use whoever, quite frankly. And at the end of the day, when I'm voting, I'm looking at what party, for me personally, this is how I'm voting. I mean, besides some other just issues that I agree with. What party, for the most part, again, there's not a perfect party here by any means, but which party, for the most part, has been more supportive over the last, we'll even say 8 years, of freedom of speech and freedom of religion? Because if you don't have freedom of speech, you can never have freedom of religion.
Yeah. And
I would have to undoubtedly say at this point, the Republican Party has believed in conserving those amendments. And at which point I'm going to vote for them as a Christian because I want religious liberty.
Yeah, to me, that's not even a question. Which one's more in support of freedom of expression and personal liberty? It's easily, currently, at this point in history, easily the party I'm going to vote for this time. I do want to thank the people sending in super chats. I'm going to take a few minutes and just read some of these. I know some of you have comments and questions. Samuel, the infamous, for $5, thank you for supporting the channel, says, saying rows must align in every sense is collectivist nonsense. We're supposed to be championing individualism.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
John Thomas, thank you for the $10, says too many like Walsh are not conservative because they are only arguing who holds the levers of power. I'm a constitutionalist and want to remove the levers. That was my point with Odin a few weeks ago.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, if I can add a little bit to it, and I agree with John Thomas. I think even the labels of conservative, liberal, like I understand it means something, but I think the biggest label that we really should be looking at is authoritarian versus non-authoritarians. And the reason why we don't like the woke isn't because they have pronouns in their bio. The reason we don't like them is because they're authoritarians. And then when I look to the right of me, I see someone like Curmudgeon, who is just as much of an authoritarian, except he just doesn't have as much power. But give him power, he'll do just as bad or worse as the people he complains about. As much as what I notice is that for authoritarians, they play the victim when they don't have power. Then they become everyone's friend when they don't have power. Oh, you know what? Freedom of speech is really important to me. We shouldn't cancel people. Boycotting things is wrong. Why? Because they don't have the power. But as soon as they get the power, they will cancel you. They don't care if you're a politician or a cashier at a Home Depot. They do not care. These are authoritarians. And so this is partly why I'm an independent, because I have to be able to look at both sides of me and determine who is the authoritarian, because the authoritarians are the people I need to stay away from. The non-authoritarians are the people I can work with. And that means if they're on the left or on the right, these are people I can work with. But someone like Matt Walsh, he's just as much as an authoritarian as that screaming feminist leftist that's at a college campus. Give them power and they will rule over you.
I'd agree.
Yep.
I mean, here's the thing with, and this goes back a little bit, but it also works with the statement you just made. The thing about politics is, in almost all politics, there's hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. The key is, can you recognize where your own hypocrisy is? Can you acknowledge it? Because it's almost impossible to not have some hypocrisy in politics. So it's those that are just, burying their head in the ground that are the really worrisome ones. The people who can actually acknowledge their hypocrisy is a different thing.
I have to think more about basically everything you just said, Adam, is where I was at solidly for several years until maybe sometime in the past year. I started rethinking authoritarianism itself. I'm not saying I don't support it. I don't like the government forcing people into anything. This is certainly not religion. Certainly not. I've started rethinking, though, how do we determine which of our morals and values we should turn into law? Like, how do we determine that? For example, we all still, for the most part in this country, agree that murder is wrong and it should be illegal. I say for the most part because in the past, several decades, there's been a lot of disagreement on, well, is abortion murder, though? Can we carve that out as something separate? Or is that, and I think also we're getting to a place just where we don't value human life as much. And I wonder what's going to happen in the future, even, or can we even agree on that law? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I've started thinking more about that. And like you said, Brahma, I'm not articulating this well. I've been thinking more about the points of view of the conservatives who are Christians, who use, for example, their Christian beliefs to say, I do believe, for example, that abortion is murder and it should be illegal. And that should be, now, is that authoritarianism? Or is that morality, shared morality being enacted in the law? And how do you distinguish those things? I don't want to take us down a huge rabbit hole, but you're giving me a lot to think about, is what I'm saying.
I have sort of an answer for you. Mm-hmm. And my test is actually the thing I look for, because for authoritarians, it's really not about policy. Mm-hmm. What it comes down to is punishment. Mm-hmm. That's how you can tell. And they're willing to punish you for not going along with them, for doing something the opposite of what they want. And by their willingness to punish, they're willing to do anything, even the things that they complain about, that other people do. And this is why the whole cancel culture thing, I think, is a really, really big thing, because it just shows you their willingness to punish someone, even if that person has no social or political power. It's their willingness to punish. And that, to me, that's the authoritarian. That's the off with your head, but socially. And so that's what's very alarming to me. And that's where I'm like, the difference between the person who's willing to cancel the cashier because they said some flippant comment that even I don't agree with. The difference between them and the woke leftist who's at the college campus who's willing to call your job is ideology. That's it. But their willingness to punish you for not aligning with them is the authoritarian aspect. Generally, liberals and conservatives can get along, relatively so. But the authoritarians do not like anybody unless they're just as authoritarian as they are and politically or socially aligned with them. And so they will punish anyone who gets in their way. And they'll especially punish people who are weak, right? Because they're bullies. And bullies go after the weakest, the timid, the feeble, the people without power. You see how much effort they went into canceling Bob the firefighter who doesn't like Trump, but they won't call a congressman's office when he passes some sort of law that they don't agree with. That's the bully. That's the authoritarian. You see how much effort they put in to go after people who are weak, who have no power, who have no social currency. They'll go after those people. And that's... Yeah.
You're making me think of Nietzsche's The Tarantulas, which when I first read that a few years ago, I was like, oh, this is the woke. He's got the woke pegged. But actually, he has these very resentful, revengeful people that you're talking about pegged. And he even uses that word revenge when he's talking about the tarantulas, those who hide their desire for revenge under the blanket of the banner of justice.
Yes.
And yeah, that's really...
And even more so when you start to see the justification, because remember, there's always a justification. No one's ever the bad person, right? Everything I do is righteous. So there has to be some sort of justification to show that I'm righteous. It is lame, childish excuses like they started it, right? Hence, it's about vengeance. It's not about being right. It's about an eye for an eye. Well, guess what happens? We both end up blind if we act this way out. But that's the authoritarian. The authoritarian doesn't care about being righteous. They care about being wrong or being right and being right in that moment. It's not about being righteous whatsoever.
I want to pull up, Amber Rose was not the only speaker who has been criticized for not being, not being pure enough on certain values and morals to be a speaker, to be a presenter at the RNC. The other one was a lawyer who many of us in the, I guess you would say, wrong think world, the base world, are familiar with, Harmeet Dhillon. And before I bring that up, just let me get through these quickly. Brett, thank you, who's been a member for 2 months. Thank you, Brett. He says, I really enjoyed meeting Michelle last weekend.
Yes, it was very nice to meet Brett.
Samuel, the infamous, for $5. Thank you. Says small steps in the right direction are better than no steps. Mm-hmm. Rose praised two men. She did, her father and Trump. She admitted past ignorance, and she did not shill her OnlyFans on stage. That's true. She did not. Brett, for $6, thank you, says Amber Rose's speech was great. I just don't agree with her doing OnlyFans. Other than that, her speech seemed very pro-America. Mm-hmm. Yes. Skillet, for $5, thank you, says it's the Republican National Convention, not the Southern Baptist Convention.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Christianity too, is that Christianity believes in tolerance of other people, mm-hmm. people being able to have other beliefs. We don't believe in forcing you to become a Christian, at the end of a gun, like, accept it or else this happens. And so, yeah.
Well, and that wording, it reminds me kind of what Adam's talking about, authoritarian or not. Like, there's certain segments that they're like the fundamentalist. Like, you've got the fundamentalist groups of Christians that are so rigid, so strict. Like, if you break outside of their tiny little box at all, you're out. And that's kind of why I don't listen to certain people, even amongst the conservative party.
Yeah.
Samuel, the infamous, thank you for all the support tonight for the channel. Samuel for $10 says it wasn't that long ago that Matt Walsh and the Daily Wire started getting involved in pop culture discourse as though they had been there all along and expected everyone to take them seriously too. Are you talking about the gamer stuff?
Yeah,
or the anime?
He's stepped in on the anime and video game stuff a few times.
Yeah, but most of that was just his dry humor. As somebody who watches him a few times a week, yeah, when he's saying anime is the devil, I mean, he's doing it like dry, like I do humor. And most of the people watching him know that. Most of the people seeing the clips take it and blow it out of proportion to a degree. But it does show an out of touchness with the millennials and with Gen Z, and being able to actually give them a message that doesn't sound, curmudgeonly.
My only pushback on that, Brahm, would be is when he gets called out by like big YouTubers, he doubles down. He doesn't just say, I was being sarcastic. Yeah. He's like, no, well, you know what, blah, 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 blah.
Well, anime is stupid, so.
I mean, I don't watch anime. I'm not going to get into it.
A couple of others in the chat. Samuel, the infamous, for $5 says, I'm not a Christian and I'm on the right. People like Walsh keep pushing for purity tests and Christians will find themselves alone and outnumbered.
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they have to realize there's this whole segment of conservatives, especially in the South, that love, to get drunk on their whiskey and beer, and they love Haktua Girl, in Nashville. So, like, it's not exactly just a church group. Yes, there are a lot of Christians in the Conservative Party, but there's a lot of non-Christians in the Conservative Party. They just agree with the more conservative principles overall.
Well, this is the fundamental different. This is part of the problem with the word conservative, because are we talking about conservative policies, or are we talking about being conservative in our social stance?
Right.
And this is like, for one person, it's like, yeah, I want less taxes. Mm-hmm. I think we should have these particular policies. That's why I call myself a conservative and vote Republican. The next person's like, I believe in a strong moral stance and blah, 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 blah. And that's why I'm a conservative. And so you have these two factions that are always bickering. And honestly, it comes more so from the moral side. Because, yeah, you want your cheap taxes, but do you believe in Jesus Christ? Like, it's that kind of purity test and bickering about what people should do with themselves and why they're not good enough to vote for their party or be involved in their party. I know you were about to bring up Harmeet. We can talk more about that.
Let me read this last one. And hello, I want to say hello to Nina Infinity's here. Comics Division's here. Hello, you guys.
What's up, Nina?
Let's see. Last one. Southern Belle for $5. I don't expect people to have my faith values, but policy values should be debated, and I welcome others there. But kids will want to check her socials. Mm-hmm. That's true. Thank you for supporting the channel. Yeah, kids want to check our socials. I mean, that's the other thing. I personally, we've done episodes on porn. You know how I feel about it. I don't like it. I hope she gets out of it. But at the same time, I think having her there as a voice of someone who had the wrong idea about Trump, did her research, and has changed her mind. If you're going to pick someone who's a walk away, I think she's a great example. There's so many different walkaways, but she's a great example. And she does already have a lot of young people checking her socials. I mean, she's got 25 million followers. So that's part of the reason why they watched her.
She delivered a better speech than Kamala Harris could. So, I mean, I know that's a low bar, but
unburdened by what has been, never been.
Unburdening.
Okay, let's move on to the other controversial speaker, Harmeet. So Harmeet K. Dhillon is a free speech attorney. And many like I said, in the world that we all run in are familiar with her because she's kind of a hero. Let's just read off a list of things she's done. Local Distance just collected these. You can follow Local Distance there on X. This woman who gave the Sikh prayer at the RNC is Harmeet Dhillon, one of the most important conservative activists and lawyers in America. She filed lawsuits to stop stay-at-home order during COVID. She defended James Damore when Google fired him. She sued Antifa on behalf of Mr. Andy Ngo when he was assaulted. She sued on behalf of college Republicans when Berkeley canceled Ann Coulter's speech. She sued to stop Hawaii's COVID quarantine orders. She was a legal advisor on Trump's 2020 campaign. She filed a lawsuit against Kaiser Permanente on behalf of Chloe Cole for damage done by gender transition surgery and puberty blockers when Chloe was a kid, by the way. She served as chair of the San Francisco Republican Party. She's the co-chair of Women for Trump. She represented the South Bay United Pentecostal Church and other churches when Gavin Newsom shut down churches during COVID. She won injunctive relief from the Supreme Court in 2021. Her firm filed a lawsuit against the city of San Jose when they demanded people purchase insurance and pay fees to own firearms. She worked with the Center for American Liberty, Thomas More Society attorneys, and Nebraska malpractice attorney Jeff Downing to sue the University of Nebraska Medical Center on behalf of Luca Hine for the damage done by childhood gender transition. The Dhillon Law Group was hired by the RNC to file a lawsuit against Google for discrimination against the RNC. Her firm won a $100,000 settlement against Spreckles School District for transitioning a girl behind her parents' back. This list of things that she's done on behalf of Republican and conservative causes goes on and on. The vitriol, hate, mockery, derision, and general malice directed towards her is utter nonsense. She has a spine of steel in taking on causes that other law firms were afraid to touch, including COVID restrictions, schools transitioning kids, and the medical transition of minors. So I say all of that. If you're not, maybe you're not online as much as some of us. She was asked to give the opening, I'm not sure it was the opening, but the prayer one night at the convention, and she is Sikh. And so this was her prayer. And I'm gonna play a video that has gone viral because it includes the prayer with the criticism. And this is Melanie Mack, who is adding her commentary to the prayer. Hold on, the volume on that's kind of loud.
Listen to what she says.
Our one true God. Dear Waheguru, our one
Waheguru, whatever. Waheguru.
Dear Waheguru, our one true God.
She says it right there. Some people are like, oh, but she's talking about our God. She's talking about the real God, the one true God. Wahegu, are you retarded? Are you serious? Are you justifying a freaking demon?
Just to be clear, that is the name, that is their word for God. But
And in their belief system, it's all God is the same God.
it's one
Gods
God.
from every religion are the one same God, is what they kind of believe.
Brahma, do you know her religion?
Sikh,
Oh, okay.
it's a Hindu.
Oh, no, but she's talking
Split off, I believe.
about the people. How did people not boo her off the stage? She prayed to a demon, and people are in the audience with their cowboy hats, some of them bowing their head and praying to it. What is going on? Read your Bibles, people. How was this acceptable?
We thank you for creating America as a unique.
Waheguru created America. This is blasphemy. But why don't you accept other religions? Freedom of religion. She can pray to whatever demon she wants to in her own time, but we should not, as Americans, be standing for and applauding and supporting someone on a platform praying over the nation to a demon. She just cursed our country on stage, and you're supporting it? This is insane.
Okay. So,
Can I
yeah.
go first?
Sure. Have at it.
All right. So this kind of touches in with what I was originally saying. The Republican Party is not a church.
Mhm.
And people need to come to that fact. Otherwise, they're going to be very upset and disappointed because there are people who agree with your political stances who just don't believe in the same God or religious principles as you.
Mhm.
And it's very interesting to me where, when someone says, but, you can pray for whoever you want, but you're moving past what you just said, so you can make the real point that you want to say. You do not like that a non-Christian is praying at the Republican Party. You do have a problem with someone else's religious beliefs. And so I just find it very interesting when we talk about you want a country where you're free to express your religion, right? Well, that means everyone's religion, not just yours. Like, that's the whole point. Just the same way you can talk about being free speech warriors. Listen, I had Nazis all up in my DMs.
Yes.
But you know what? That's what it is. People are allowed to be degenerate and aggressive and assholes. They're allowed to be these things in a free nation. Just like I'm allowed to practice my Christian faith in this free nation, and someone else is allowed to be a Hindu or Sikh, a Muslim. That's the whole point. And when we say, once again, that the Republican Party is about numbers and it's about winning, it's not about who can hone in the most solid of Christian values as you go to the ballot box and you feel so pure because you're voting for someone who, who's so Biblically sound. Like, that's not what this is for. Obviously, you want to get someone who's not a complete degenerate for multiple reasons, right? And that's your prerogative as far as who you want to choose. But that's not what it's for. There's no real litmus test when it comes to who runs for office. It's controlled by money and a whole other aspect. But if we're to be 100% blunt, I think the biggest issue is that it is not just that she is Sikh. It is that she is not a white Christian who is standing up on that stage representing what is very familiar to her. I know this sounds very woke of me to say this, but I see so much sensitivity over the most benign things that happen in our society. And I see such a strong reaction when the person doesn't look like what they expect. And I think there is much of that still exists within the Republican Party. They do not like the big tent. They do not like that there's a black man that's sitting next to Donald Trump who is very competent and is a good man. They do not like that there are multiple religious factions. We heard Ann Coulter said, Vivek, I like you, but I just don't want you as president because you're not a WASP. I'll give her that. She's at least honest. But that type of mentality still exists with the Republican Party. And many of the same people who are like that do not like Donald Trump because Trump isn't that person. Trump is still kind of a New York liberal who is okay with people's sexuality, religious beliefs, or whatever they want to believe. As long as you support him, he doesn't care.
I will counter you on one thing, which is that I actually don't think it has anything to do with race for Melanie Mack.
I would agree.
I don't think it does. But it is really, for her, it comes down to Christianity or not. I think the way that I read her and having seen some of her other commentary, like the black preacher, for example, she'll have nothing to say negative about him because he's Christian. But
Right.
for her, she views any other religion as that's Satanism, basically, I think. And so to play devil's advocate, because first of all, I'll let it be known, I think that I don't agree with Melanie on this, that Harmeet should not be speaking or doing the prayer. Again, this isn't a Christian rally. This is a political rally. And so we tolerate other faiths. And I've seen people in the chat saying all night, well, that doesn't mean we have to accept them. No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean you have to go home and convert and become Sikh. It doesn't. It means that a Sikh can also support conservative values, and you can have overlap with a Christian, as Harmeet does, on a lot of values, and she can speak or give the prayer at the Republican National Convention. So I disagree with that. But let me ask you guys to still man the position for a second. I'm going to try this. What if the prayer were Satanists who were up there praising Satan?
Yeah. That's where my line would be drawn.
Well, actually, I have a statement. Satanism isn't a religion. It is anti-religion.
It's the absence of.
That's true.
It's the absence of.
Right.
The reason, like, I think what often happens is because I knew someone who's a Satanist and we had this discussion. They're just trolls. They're just Christian trolls, and so we just give them too much attention because we believe these things, but they're atheists who like trolling Christians, and Satan to them doesn't mean anything to them, just like Jesus Christ doesn't mean anything to them. But they're just extreme individualists, but they're extreme narcissists. Really, that's what it comes down to. So I would counter that being, if we're saying, well, what about this religion? Satanism isn't a religion, as far as I can tell.
And I want to address someone in the chat. Let me find it. Pathetic. Yeah. No. Go up to his first. I agree with Melody. And I agree with that statement that tolerance is not acceptance. We can tolerate things that we don't really personally accept in our faith. I absolutely believe in that, but I don't think that necessarily applies here. Because as Adam has said, and I think we've all said, this is not, they've had Christian prayers there that pray to the God we serve, and everyone on this panel serves, but they also had her who wasn't necessarily being offensive. And as far as I would say this about her, and you reading off what she's done, if I'm in a fight, I want that woman on my team.
Yeah, she was part of the reason that Christians were able to go to church during COVID,
yes,
or at least have the churches open if they chose to.
Yeah.
And that wasn't just her churches. That was any of the churches.
Wait, are you saying a woman who prays to a demon helped Christians? Oh my goodness. Well,
and that's again where the thing between, the religious side of things and the political side of things, they don't necessarily mix.
Yes.
You can't mix them. And she wasn't even talking about the RNC in the clip. She was saying we as Americans shouldn't allow this.
Right.
That even takes it to another level. And I like Melanie, but she went overboard on this one, I think. I agree. It doesn't paint a good picture of Christians either, necessarily. It may be what we believe, but going about it that way, I don't think is the right way to go about it. But she's allowed to say that too.
I'm just probably not going to go hard at somebody that if I was in a pinch, I would want them on my team, because it sounds like if a group came against me as a minister for my beliefs, this woman would have my back legally and fight for my right of freedom of religion and freedom of speech. And I want those people on my side. I want them there. So I get why she was up there at the same time for the RNC.
Just to bring it back to the context, I think is so important and it matters. When I go to church, like, I don't want, as I said before, Trump to be my pastor. I don't want him to be my shepherd. I think he needs shepherding, and as much as I do, maybe he has a shepherd. I hope he does. But I don't want him in that position. I also don't want any of these speakers at my church that we've seen. These two, they're not Christian. They're not speaking. That wouldn't be appropriate for that venue. But this is the Republican National Convention. This is about nominating people of all walks of life and faiths coming together and nominating the next president. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm still thinking about it a lot. I don't know if we entirely answered that question. I don't know if I can about Satanism, because I have an immediate reaction to that. If they were to say, even though you say, Adam, it's not a real religion, But, you know, they troll, like they put up that Satan statue in one of the courthouses, some state courthouse. If there were a Satanist who's like, I'm joining the Republican Party, and I, you know, and they, for some reason, said, let the Satanists lead the prayer. I don't think that would ever happen. But if that were the case, I mean, for me, that's a heck no. But why? How do I argue that?
Well, I think also, Keri, though, a Satanist is going to be so anti all the things we just that do make up overall the conservative beliefs. As you pointed out, she shares a lot of we have a lot of shared values in our beliefs. I would say another one that I mean I would struggle with, and I don't think should be accepted up at the RNC, would be like someone who is like so deep into the Islamic thing that they're like for Sharia law, because that just doesn't fit. Not only in the RNC, it doesn't fit in the United States of America legally. So I don't really think that would fit. But again, there's legal issues there as well with their beliefs.
So if I can just add, much of this feels like people, we're okay with people when they're doing certain things at a certain time, but there's a limit to it. And
yes,
I've never really talked to Melanie or anything, and I'm not saying the racial aspect for Melanie wasn't really for her. It was more of a general statement that I've seen, and I'm with you. I think more likely she's speaking from her biblical stance. You know, that's her opinion. But I do think that there is an aspect of that exists within the Republican Party that claims to be Christian, right? And that is very much so not just nationalistic, but in an unhealthy way, but also ethnocentric. And they like the image that they have in their mind. They like what they see in the mirror. They want someone who looks just like them. They want a white Christian to be in leadership. Now, they're okay with someone like me voting for their party. They're okay with us participating in certain ways, as long as we behave in a particular way, right? They're okay with that. However, when it comes to certain roles, that's too far for them. And so when I see someone like Harmeet, who you just read off an entire list, not just the things that she's done professionally, but the things that she's done or associated with behind the scenes with the California Republican Party and things of that nature. So you read all that, all cool with that. Well, here's the limit. Sorry, lady, you can't have your demon speak on my stage. You know, you're not right enough to speak on our stage, to try and bless our stage. Now, it's perfectly fine if you pray before you help us have religious liberty, and it's okay if you benefit us Christians in this particular way, but you're not the right type of representation that can stand up on this stage. And I've kind of come to that point where I see it. It is obvious to me that it still exists. And while I was poisoned somewhat by the left-wing media, just like the left and the right, they're not entirely wrong. There is some grain of truth that there are racists, there are ethnocentric people, there are extremely, extremely focused Christian fanatics that exist in the Republican Party that do not like that Trump is not that guy. They're part of the never Trumpers. They're part of the people. Like when I hear someone say, if you're a Christian, you wouldn't vote Democrat. That tells me a lot as far as what their expectations are. That tells me a lot about their particular political personality. And what I see from that is as soon as Donald Trump is on his way out, here come these people back into the fold. No more big tent, everybody. Me, they don't care about me at all. And the only reason they care about somebody like me, the only reason why someone like Byron Donalds is sitting next to Donald Trump is because of Donald Trump.
Wait a minute. So can you define a little bit about what you're talking about? Because I have not seen a lot of this except for what I've seen and what's in my inbox right now. Also white nationalists, groypers,
Yeah.
people who are actively saying they want Trump to lose. They want to destroy the conservative party because it's not white, straight, Christian enough. Although, and these people claim to be Christians and they put Christ is King all over the internet, but they speak
Right.
lies. They speak the lies of Satan because they use that phrase. They pervert it. They use that phrase while they're also spewing anti-Semitism, racism against Black people, sexism, all kinds of things. They're not behaving as Christ. They're not presenting any fruits of Christ. They're not speaking anything Christian. They're just using that label as cover.
Right.
That's what I've been seeing lately, and I've addressed it a few times on this channel. Is that that contingent's not at the RNC as far as I can tell? There's still, and is that what you're talking about, or do you think it's bigger than that, like band of extremists?
I think, well, they're obvious is that group. They're not as big as people think. But I do think that sentiment exists. We just gave the example of Ann Coulter and how she felt. And she's not alone. And in the way she's speaking, like, think about this. She said to Vivek, theoretically, to his face, which means she feels comfortable saying that. Why does she feel comfortable saying that? Because other people agree with her, right? Most people don't say, I mean, granted, Ann Coulter says uncomfortable things.
Yeah,
that's like her thing. That's her thing.
That's kind of her thing.
Yeah, but I do an example, but I don't know that it's your best example. I mean, the Groyper thing is definitely there, and your DMs may give you a completely different view on this one, but I just don't see it as a large contingent of the party. There is some, but I mean, we all know that there's extremists on both the left and the right. But I don't think it's an overarching, huge contingent, because I'm just not seeing it. But if you can give me more examples, sure. But
yeah,
because then on the left, you've got like the white women that are like, yeah, we love Black people. And then like she sees like a Black guy coming, like, remember that story, Keri? She's like walking her dog in the park at like Times Square. She's like, don't come near me.
Oh, the bird watcher guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that contingent can go either way.
Well, yeah. Listen, there are immoral, imperfect people everywhere. My concern is not necessarily that 50%, 30%, or 25% of people feel this particular way. My concern is that just like the woke is not the majority of the Democratic Party, yet somehow Joe Biden is up there saying gender affirming care. Right? That's the point, is because there's a certain amount who are in key positions who feel this particular way, so much so that everyone is too afraid to call it what it is, and they just go along with it, which is why I left the Democratic Party. I'm starting to see we just talked about the authoritarian lean. I'm starting to see the same drips and drabs of authoritarianism, of ethnocentric viewpoints, of expectations to have one ideological front, right? The woke is one ideological front, and I'm starting to see the guise of Christianity, because I know what it really is. Like you just said, Keri, this isn't Christianity. This is the guise of Christianity. Just like the people who throw a Christ is King all of a sudden into a Jewish person's face. That's the guise of Christianity. I'm starting to see more and more of that. I'm starting to see the grift go in that direction from all these different influencers, which unfortunately a lot of these politicians actually pay attention to and listen to, and they go with the direction as well. So it's not to say that it is 12%, 15%, 30%. It is about key people in key positions who are having more and more of an influence, and people are starting to bend in that will. And when Donald Trump leaves, because Republican Party is the party of Trump right now. But I'm looking in the future. What happens when Donald Trump leaves? That's the key thing. And who's going to take over?
Let me bring something up, Adam, and I wonder if this changes your mind, or if you already read this context and think that it's bogus. This is specifically about the Ann Coulter thing, because I had never heard that. She clarified and said that it wasn't about race. She said, I've said it a million times. I think immigrants should wait a few generations before telling us what to do. I'm only talking about the role office of president. It's not racist, she continued. Blacks, for example, have been here longer than most whites. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with being a citizen for at least 3 generations. I think that would be a good rule. And then she went on to say, there's a reason the founders wanted the president to be natural born, which Ted Cruz is not. She attacked Ted Cruz. But she seems to be in her clarification saying that she wouldn't have a problem with a black person, but she has a problem with him because he's Indian, meaning she thinks of him as Indian in terms of citizenship even. Like she doesn't view him as he's not 3 generations in. Do you buy that explanation for what she was saying?
So why 3 and not 2? Why not 4? Why not 5? Like,
right.
What does it mean to be an American? What the fuck does it mean? Like that's ultimately my question. Who gets to determine what an American is? Because we decided that if you were born here, you're a goddamn American. So you're an American. And for someone to punish you for something that you had no control over, I have no control over that. My father was born in another country and immigrated here. 0 control over that. And so I'm not American enough, right? Am I just half okay because one side is more American and has been here longer than my father's side? Like, that's the type of really like intellectually dishonest shit that I see from someone like Ann Coulter, who thinks that I actually kind of respected Ann Coulter in many ways. But this is one of those areas of arrogance, right? Because it is not involving her. She's not the one who would be penalized. It's not someone in her particular family who would be penalized for something they have no control over. So my question is, what does it mean to be an American? Does it mean to be American because you're born here? Does it mean to be American because you have the values? Because what I see from someone like Vivek, who I've started to see as a friend, is that Vivek has all the values that she has. Maybe more so, actually, when I think about it. More of a moral person, actually cares about people, wants the best for this country. What else is there? What else is there? And that's not good enough for her because he doesn't have enough of a generational gap to represent the nation. Like, that's such bullshit. That's such bullshit.
Well, and that's why it's not a rule for running for president. That's
Yes,
just her being
exactly.
an idiot.
It is natural born people, though. They do
Yes.
say
Yes, natural born is.
meaning one
Fine.
like you can't
Well,
have
you were born here.
You must be born here.
you must be born here.
But that's just for president, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
But-
And that's what she
fine.
said her comments were about too for president. She thinks it should be changed to 3 generations.
But see, that's kind of the thing, kind of the theme of tonight. That's that really rigid like take that just isn't going to win over. It's almost like that's almost as rigid and ridiculous as some of the leaps that say the manosphere take. It's like this hyper rational, but it's actually not even rational when you really think about it, like take that's never going to happen.
Right.
And that's kind of what that is. Like, why would you even waste your breath on that? They're not going to change that rule. I mean, I'd be thrilled if we could just get to the point where U.S. citizens are the only ones who vote. Like,
Well, if Project 2025 gets its way, Michelle, it'll be 10 generations before. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I've really enjoyed this back and forth. I think this might be there's been a few Christian episodes like this that have really worked my brain in real time, where I'm having to think quickly but try and speak slowly. And this is one of those episodes as I'm thinking about a whole lot of stuff. I know there's a lot of disagreement in the chat. I've been seeing it scroll by, but you guys are great. You're always like very civil, and even when you're passionate, I appreciate it. I'll fight you naked. Hey, thanks for showing up for $2.
trying to make. Yes.
To be fair, Anne would revoke her own right to vote.
Yep. Yep. Her, I think Candace Owens, a few of them, they would just, I don't know why they're still talking, because if they really believe women, shouldn't be in this game, just get out. No one's stopping you.
Yeah.
Like how I was reading about the suffragettes, right? And the anti-suffragettes, because at the beginning, the anti-suffragettes, there were more of them. There were more women who were against women having the right to vote. And I was reading this old article about how when the public opinion changed after a lot of the men went off to war and a lot of the women moved into the workplace. And then the public opinion started to change. And then when they lost on this issue, the anti-suffragettes, a lot of them were members of the elite, by the way. And also the suffragettes, they were basically the same kind of woman, cut from the same cloth, but some of them were against having the right to vote and others were for it. So when they lost the fight to keep themselves and other women from voting, it talks about how their office was sort of now in this place of chaos. And on one side of the wall, they still had the old signs that said, women should not be, politics isn't for women and women aren't for politics. And on the other side of the wall, they now had a sign-up sheet to vote, because now they were like, well, now we better take advantage of it. And several of the anti-suffragists they ran for office very soon after. I don't know, that's a side note, but it was just very interesting of how that when things are changing so quickly politically, and you're like, well, this thing's happening anyway, I guess I should take advantage of it. Why did I think of it? Oh, because these women, they don't think women should be able to vote. So take yourself out of it as a conscientious objection, right? But I guess they're sort of doing more of what the anti-suffragists did, which is to say, well, until we stop it, I'm going to use it. Right?
Well, I mean, that's politics.
Yeah.
I believe that we should be using every voting mechanism that is in law right now to win elections, and not just do the election day thing that Republicans have typically done in the past.
Yeah.
You have to use the rules that are laid out before you.
Mm-hmm.
We have to start doing the same things they do if we want to win. We may have to hold our nose while doing it and then try to change the rules afterwards and get it to more of what we wanted. But right now we're playing by their rules. And I do think that there should be voting reform. It doesn't have to be taking the vote away from women, but I think you should have to have skin in the game to vote.
Yeah, I in general, I agree with you. If it's legal to do, then do it. Like that, this is part of like the morality part. Is politics really isn't about morality. Like the people who are in it, like if you get to know some of these politicians or talk to people who know politicians, like there's a reason why people can't wait to get out of DC, because there's so much filth and disgusting behavior that happens there. So the morality part doesn't exist in DC, doesn't exist in capitals, right? Winning does. Whether they win or lose, what's legal for me to do? In some cases, they don't care if it's legal or not, but what's legal for me to do? And what do I need to do to get the most votes to win? That's basically it. Yep. It's a math equation.
If ballot harvesting is okay, then ballot harvest.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you really don't like it, if the Republican stance is we do not like this, then change the law.
Yeah.
But you got to win first to change the law.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like,
no, definitely. It's kind of like, I actually was just talking today in Wisconsin, they approved drop boxes. And it's like, okay, I don't really like that, but okay, well then let's do what the Republicans did in the Huntington Beach, California area, and let's put some drop boxes in churches and places where conservatives are. If it's legal, go for it.
Right.
If they're going to do drop boxes, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like you got to play the game too. Can't just sit around and twiddle your thumbs and say I don't like it.
Well, did they approve them, or was that the state Supreme Court?
It was the state Supreme
overturned
Court.
It. Okay, so it's still not a law.
Yes,
it's been thrown back, but it's still, they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the whole morality thing with politics. I mean, I think that's one of the only reasons that I kind of liked Trump going when he first started running. You look at somebody like Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton, and their whole purpose, their whole life has been to crave and try to get power. Mm-hmm. Trump didn't have to do any of this. I mean, the power didn't really do anything for him. He doesn't have to be running again and facing all these stupid counts of felonies and stuff.
Or be shot.
But I think he actually is worried about the country and the direction we're going. I think that's why he's running. And somebody who doesn't crave power, even though, yeah, he probably does enjoy it, he is very egotistical. Mm-hmm. But somebody who's not craving power their whole life like most of our political class, I think is the best of what you got right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our options are always crap. It's politics.
Well, and that's why, like, and I know I've said this on the one we did before talking about politics, like my theology can inform, it definitely informs, my faith informs the way I vote on certain things. But at the end of the day, again, the RNC is not the church I'm affiliated with just had their big convention. That's not those are not the same thing. And I'm not going to, again, as we've talked about, I want as big of a 10 as we can get because like I want to win. The country club Republican days are over and it will always lose if that's what they want to do. That doesn't work anymore.
And I would add that I think a Christian perspective on having someone like an Amber Rose there, to bring it back to where we started, is I think it would be, I hope her conversion is real, her political conversion, and I hope it continues. And I pray that God touches her and that also happens, as you mentioned before, Michelle, that it opens a door, that maybe her mind is open to more, because it took a lot to open my mind to God, a lot, because it was really closed off. And so I think it's that hope, of what could it lead to, instead of this just, I don't know, nasty treatment that sometimes people are faced with when they are the Mary of Magdalene type person, or, it's like coming into the tent late, or just having moved on one thing, but not other things yet. And yeah.
If I can add my understanding to Amber Rose, like obviously we talked about the political walk away, but like part of my walk towards Christ was being around so many different Christians who were Republicans. I remember speaking at a small local Republican event that they were throwing together for authors, and they invited me. And this is probably, I don't know, 20 people. It's small, but there was so much love that was there. And I remember someone coming up to me and saying, "God is inside you," and it just like hit me. And like it still hits me when I think about it. And none of this would have happened if I didn't surround myself with Christians who helped me during this walk. Like much of what I've been doing has been putting me in place to meet these different people. I have a friend who's a theologian based in the Netherlands, who's a journalist, who I met because she saw an article I wrote in the New York Post. Like these different things. Even Michelle, I've talked to Michelle about things, and like so. When you start to go down this pathway, there are a lot of good, not the Christians, the curmudgeon Christians that we're talking about, but like there are a lot of good, loving, understanding Christians that exist out there who want to help you down that path, who want to help you in your walk, and that's like, I feel so blessed to be in this position to meet so many wonderful people like yourselves. And she, for all I know, she could be right at that beginning. And it took me a while too to come to the point where I wanted to get baptized, like I did a couple months ago.
It's recent for you, right? Praise God. That was like in the past, couple months.
Yeah, it was, less than 2 months ago. I mean, I was saved before, but I wanted to go through the baptism, and like everything just worked out in that particular way for me to end up in a city where my family is actually at, and I'm not from, with someone that I met through this path, to be baptized in a lake and have them be there with me. Like it was very special for that to occur. And I just think about the people who don't understand, because they've always been Christian, they've always been conservative, they've always been that, and they do not understand how difficult, how humbling it is to change your mind. Right? We're not changing our mind about what car we want to buy. We're changing our mind about our belief system, our political affiliations, who we associate with, what we believe, right? Moving from pro-choice to pro-life. Like these are major changes, because it's so hard for a human being to admit that they're wrong about something, or they just want to move in a different path. And I wish there was more understanding. I think there is understanding. The people who were in that audience were clapping because they understood, right? Because there are many walkaways who are in that audience. But man, I like someone like Matt Walsh is just so missing out and having an understanding of how important this could actually be from a symbolic standpoint or even personally for her. And if she shows up a year or two from now, disavowing OnlyFans, wanting to go that path, then praise Jesus that happened. But man, I would feel terrible if there's another Amber Rose who was turned off from going down that path because of curmudgeon Christians that exist out there who say you're not perfect enough to be part of our club.
Well, there kind of already was. I don't know if you guys remember during the midterms, Brandy Love showed up to, what was it, the YAF, one of the groups, and was turned away.
Yes.
And she showed up under her real name, not her porn name.
Now,
I mean, she was there as, I don't know all the details, but she wasn't there necessarily to promote herself. She was there saying that, yeah, well, I've got conservative beliefs. That's how I vote. That's why I'm here. And she was turned away.
My issue with that was that being a porn star, she was at, it wasn't the RNC. It was the YAF.
It's not the RNC.
It was the youth. Yeah. It was a youth thing. And that really, for me, I was thinking.
Or was it TPUSA?
Oh, I thought it was a youth thing.
I don't know that it was the youth thing, but it was one of the big groups that does traveling, talks and everything. We'd have to look up which one it was. If it was the youth one, that may be an issue. But if it was Turning Point USA or something like that, then not as big an issue.
Turning Point USA. But I thought it was like a youth event at TPUSA. Maybe I'm wrong. If somebody in the chat has a memory on this and can find it or let us know. But thank you, Wicked Psyched, for $5 for supporting the channel. Says this was an interesting, thought-provoking discussion. Good. That's what we aim for. And this one, like I said, gave me a lot to think about. Toxic Man Flu for $5. Who is this character in the chat? Says, no matter what has been said, I believe Brahma is wrong. Because he and I cannot agree ever. If we did, my core belief system would dissolve.
Yeah. And he loves to be vocal about it. And I'm non-confrontational for the most part. So.
He also has been a member for 19 months. Thank you, Toxic Man Flu. Says, I will not fight anyone naked ever. Thank you, sir. And push-ups for $2. I think Mel's on X right now. Maybe she can join. I think we're about ready to wrap up. We had about an hour and a half for this one, 2 hours tops. But you know what? I am going to ask her. I had asked her to previously to be on when we were going to talk about the movie, which I forgot to say at the beginning. We've pushed that 2 weeks out. So you still have time to see Sound of Hope, which is in theaters right now. The story of Possum Trot. And we're going to give our review in a couple weeks. Everybody has time to go see it.
Are we changing the rotation, or are we doing back-to-back Wednesdays this weekend or this week and next week? Because that would put us back on the normal rotation, wouldn't it?
We could.
What do you have with Chris?
No, we can't do.
Or are you done on Wednesday?
I've already booked a pop culture. Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
It's a little out there. Sorry.
No problem.
Michael Coyer for $4.99. Thank you, Michael. Says Gandhi. This is a Gandhi quote. There are many religions as there are individuals. Even as Christians, we cannot agree on marriage, homosexuality, abortion, priests, etc. Which is a real shame. And I think a lot of that is willful misinterpretation of scripture. And then some of it is just it's not willful. It's just not being, maybe people just making mistakes or wanting to substitute their own. Like when I first became a Christian, there were things that I was like, I don't know
really
about
wanted
this
to say
God.
this.
I wanted to say this, God. Yeah. Like I wanted to say.
That's modernity coming in.
I'll fight you naked for $2. My porn career is flagging. Praise Jesus. I'm saved. Well, there are always going to be grifters and con artists in every faith. Absolutely. And the Christian faith is full of people who claim to be Christians who are con artists, but so is woke. So is anti-woke. So is atheism. I don't know. Everything. Wherever you find sincere believers, there's going to be people there who are speaking those believers' beliefs back to them for fame, money, and power. That's going to happen. I just don't like automatically assuming that everyone has bad intent and leaving no room for good for people to change their mind.
Yeah, Paul did a pretty big about face.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
What a grifter.
The biggest grifter.
The biggest grifter.
Yeah.
The OG grifter.
Hey, but in fairness, they weren't sure. Like Barnabas had to get them and be like, "No, guys, it's legit," because they were like, "Oh gosh, it's Paul. It's Saul. He's coming to get us. He's faking."
Andrew Knapp for $5. I feel like the altar to the unknown God is relevant with the Harmeet thing. Paul used their religious practice as a way to reach the Greeks.
Yes, he did.
Can you explain that, Michelle?
Yeah, when he was in Athens, there was a statue to the unknown God, and he basically takes that and uses it as an opportunity. I think he even quotes some of their thinkers, the Greek thinkers, and he just uses it as an opportunity to preach Christ. And
he basically said, "You know who that is? Because I know who it is."
Yes,
and then he told them about God,
exactly.
about the Christian God.
And your average Patriot nerds, our little membership fairy tonight, giving out 5 memberships. Thank you, your average Patriot nerd. And everybody who grabbed one of those, give your average Patriot nerd a thank you. I dropped a link in here to a recent sermon. I think it's relevant. It's my pastor at Church on the Square talking about faith and politics. And I thought it was really great. So I just dropped it in there if you guys are interested. I think we're going to wrap it up. Do you guys have final thoughts you want to leave us with? And also let us know where everybody can find you. Adam, I'll start with you, our special guest tonight.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for inviting me on. It was great having this discussion with everybody. I don't know. I feel like I said a lot. I feel like I ranted a lot.
You did it. You're good.
Usually Odin, who's not here, usually him and I talk a lot. So it's good when someone else does.
Yeah, I'm so used to writing and not yet necessarily ranting. So thank you for this opportunity for my therapy session, political therapy session. As much as we were talking about the people that we disagree with and their approach, I am also looking at the positives, that there are a lot of people who are like us, who are speaking up and saying, no, cancel culture isn't good. No, we shouldn't be doing this. Yes, it's perfectly fine that Harmeet gave her prayer. And it's perfectly fine that Amber Rose is there. It serves a purpose. And I'm sorry, not every messenger is perfect. So I do see both sides of it as far as the negative, but the reaction to the negative is there, and it is not homogeneously negative. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that there are people who are trying to be principled, who are trying to be critical thinkers, who aren't trying to be partisans, or I'm sorry, not partisans, but like Puritans. In every little thing that happens, and everything must be exactly the way that they want it. Life is imperfect, and sometimes you get imperfect people who can really benefit you. And so we see that with Harmeet, as far as, yeah, she's not your perfect religion and she doesn't believe in Christ, but guess what? She's done a lot of things that actually benefited Christians and the Republican Party. And the same thing with Amber Rose. She has access to millions of people who follow her, and maybe she can turn some of those people to consider Donald Trump in this upcoming election. Who knows how much influence she has? So, yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. And people can follow my Substack, adambcoleman.substack.com.
I'll add that link to the description. We've also got the links to your Twitter and YouTube below. And thank you, Robert, for putting that in the chat. Thank you very much, Adam, for hanging out with us tonight. You're welcome back anytime. And you can come for one where we don't have controversies. We just talk about movies if you want.
I like that.
Michelle, what do you have going on?
Well, I was going to say first, it's so fun to have Adam here, because I think being raised more just in a conservative family. I don't know. I really appreciate both Keri and Adam. Years ago, I really began to kind of listen to both of you because you brought different viewpoints to my life. And I view you both as critical thinkers, and critical thinking can be viewed as sometimes a little liberal. And I don't mean that in a political way. I just mean open-minded, which I think we need to be at times. And then Brahma, you're always wonderful as well. You always bring a groundedness to our shows. So I appreciate you. I would just promote, I see Amber is in the chat. She's been in the chat on my Christian podcast, which is Force of Light podcast. I think your mod has the link. He's had it before at least.
Okay.
We just recently did it was more a conversation. We discussed holiness in the Old Testament. She's an Old Testament scholar. And I thought it was a really great conversation that I was blessed having. So I hope it is a blessing to any and all who will go check that out.
And there's the link. Thank you very much, Robert, for providing the links. Also,
Yes,
we had
thank
so
you.
many people drop in tonight. All Things Theology. Chris K-Dub is here. Hey, Chris. Good to see you.
What's up, Kiss? How you doing?
And Natalie. And yeah, really, really cool. And I saw Epic Mike earlier. We're hanging out. Okay. Brahma Bull, what do you have coming up?
Well, in 8 minutes, I'll be on Comics Division's Yelling at Part Cars channel. As for my channel, I've got the new Sunday Bullpen show where we're talking politics on Sunday mornings. So come check that one out. We've had a few good episodes, just getting that up and running. And let's see, Saturday we'll have, we're going to try, if there's nothing crazy like last Saturday, to get the last bourbon and boarding show of the season done, closing out the NHL season. So something was bigger news last Saturday, so we decided to cancel the show.
I've got Robert's got it right here. Your YouTube right here. You guys, if you're not already subscribed to Brahma Bull, go and subscribe. He's about 40 subscriptions away from being able to monetize, or one of the things he needs to do to monetize. So if you just watch the Christian panel and you know Brahma through the Christian panel, but you've never gone to his channel, please go and help him get over that mark so he can get demonetized right after and we can have a party.
Likely with the new show. So,
yeah.
But thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Just for Deprogrammed folks, tomorrow we are doing book club. I've sent out all the email links. If you didn't get one, hit me up at deprogrammedpod@gmail.com. I will make sure you get it tonight. We're talking about the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin tomorrow at 6:00, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us here tonight. If you like it, leave a like or a comment, especially if you disagree. Leave a comment and let us know what you think. And we'll see you in a couple weeks. Go see Sound of Hope.
Yes.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
Nice.